Alright, let's get started learning InDesign and creating our poster project. Go ahead and open up Adobe InDesign if you haven't already. Go to File, New, Document. And then from there, you will have a new document dialog box. And there's some presets here. For example, if you click on Print, we have letter, legal, tabloid, letter half. And then on Web, instead of being measured in inches, we have pixels. And the color would be RGB, red, green, blue, of course, and we'll go over that. So we have some typical web dimensions there. And then mobile, we have iPad, letter, and so on. So these are specific dimensions of pixels for various devices if we are designing for mobile devices. For this example, we're actually going to be creating a tabloid size poster. So click on that. And if your dialog box looks a little bit different, if you have an earlier version of Adobe InDesign, for example, not a big deal. You can just type in 11 inches for the width and then 17 inches for the height. So this is a portrait orientation because the width is smaller than the height. We don't need to click facing pages on this design because it's just going to be one page. If we do have a multiple page design, a document, we do want to check facing pages if we want it to be like a magazine, for example, where page 1 would be the cover and then page 2 and 3 would be a spread facing each other, as well as 4 and 5, 6 and 7, 8 and 9, and so on. And we also don't need to check primary text frame. That's if we are creating a book, for example. We needed a text frame by default on every page. As far as columns, we don't need to add columns at this point. We can later if we want, and we'll go over that. And the column gutter is just a space in between the columns, but let's just keep that at 1. And then for margins, let's just keep that to 0.5 inches for all 4 sides. And then the bleed and the slug, the bleed is just an area beyond the page border where we will have photos and, for example, a colored shape that goes off the edge just in case a printer doesn't cut right correctly along the edge of a page, say for example, a brochure, magazine, and so on. Anytime we're designing for print, we want to contact the printer ahead of time and ask them what kind of bleed size do they want on our file before we start designing. So it might be 0.125 to 0.25 inches or 3 millimeters to 5 millimeters, whatever it is, you want to apply that there. So just to show you what it looks like, I'm just going to 0.25 IN, and then once I click over here, because this is checked, which keeps them all the same, it changed the other 3 as well. If we wanted to uncheck that, toggle that off, we could add bleeds that are custom to each side, but for this one, they should all be the same, and that's fine. So the slug is just the area beyond the printing area, so it's not actually printed in the final product, but it has printing information on it. So it's information for the printer basically. So again, we want to contact the printer ahead of time and ask them what that should be. For this one, I'll just keep it at 0 inches. And again, if you don't see this, if you have an earlier version of Adobe InDesign, for example, and it doesn't look exactly like this, that's okay. Just make sure the width is 11 inches, height is 17 inches, 1 page, and then for the margins we'll have 0.5 inches, and then for the bleed we'll have that at 0.25 inches. Go ahead and press create, and then now we have our document. So if yours looks a little bit different as far as the shades here, the color of the interface, that's okay. But if you wanted to make it match this, or maybe you like a darker background here so the content is highlighted more with a higher contrast, or maybe you want to make it lighter in the background, you can just go on the PC to edit and then preferences and then interface. And on the Mac, you can click on the word InDesign up at the top, then go to preferences. That's one of the few differences between PC and Mac with Adobe products. And so from these options here, color theme, we can make the background darker or the interface darker, and we can also make it lighter and really light. So it's just personal preference. I'm going to keep it at the default medium dark for this one, and press OK. And so it's very important to have a couple panels open throughout this course. We want the control panel up here open, the tools panel over here, and then we have a couple panels over here. And yours might look a little bit different, and that's fine, but if you ever want to open these up, we can use the shortcuts if they're over there, if we've customized it, or you can go to Window. So we have Window Control, so that's this one up here. And then we also have the Tools panel, and then we have a couple panels over here on the dock. To make yours look just like this, go ahead and where it says Essentials, make sure that's selected, but then also go down to Reset Essentials. That will reset it to the default. Now what I like to do is click this, collapse the double-sided arrow there, and then click and drag it to just combine it with one of these so we could put it up at the top or down there, either way, just so we have a little bit more room here, instead of having the CC libraries in its own column. Now once you do customize it, wherever the panels are. Say the tools panel's over here, you have the control panel at the top, and then some of these, maybe they're floating off like this, or we've got some expanded, say like this. Maybe this one's open, and then this one is over here, and click this expand panels. Maybe we have it over here like that, and we've got it customized how we want it. We can save that workspace by just clicking up where it says Essentials and just go to New Workspace, and you would name it. So I'm actually going to go back to Resetting the Essentials, and then click and drag this one. Actually, I'm going to keep it docked over there, but I'm going to click this one over here, bring it right below there, and we'll dock it to the side here. If you bring it over and it adds that blue shade there, just click there, and then we've got it over on the side. Now, throughout this course, there will be some options here up on the control panel. It depends on what object we have selected or tool we have selected. It will adjust options up here. Now, sometimes we'll have to have the window really maximized large, and I'm recording on a smaller area of the screen, so it might not show up, so I can actually just bring that out. See how it brings out a couple more options. We can use these shortcuts on the control panel, but if you want to ever customize it, you can click way up at the top where it has a little gear icon and click that. And that will bring this up, and then we can customize what's on the control panel by default. And these options we can also use, for example, the menu up here as well. There's multiple ways to do the same thing in Adobe InDesign. But for now, I'm going to keep that as the default, and I'm going to save this workspace we have here. It's close to the Essentials. It's just a little bit different in that the CC Libraries is combined with these other panels over here. So I'm going to go to New Workspace, and I'll just put Poster Design because that's what we're working on. Now let's go ahead and place an image, and we'll see right here, this is the page border. That's the edge that will print. Out here will not print, but we have the bleed along the edge, and we'd want to design to the edge in case the printer cut the paper just a little bit in between these two areas, for example. So go ahead and go to File, Place, and from there select Table in the InDesign Support Files, Poster, then Photos. Go and press Open, and if you just click and let go, well, notice this is a large photo, and we can make photos smaller, and we'll be going over that. We don't want to stretch photos larger than the original because they will pixelate. So with the selection tool selected up here, it's the black arrow, and if you want 2 columns, you can click that arrow. We'll have 2 columns, but I just use 1 column here for the tools panel. We'll click and drag this over here like that. And then let's just go ahead and click and drag the corner so that it's right along the edge of that bleed there. Notice that it cropped out part of the photo. It didn't resize it. That's okay. We can actually go to Object, Fitting, and then Fill Frame Proportionately. So it does a pretty good job of filling that with the photo. It's got a little bit more of the photo on the edge. You can see there if we click and drag the edge of this photo frame, it's got a little bit of content that's cropping out. Now, if we wanted to include that entire edge there, we could have it just go along the edge like that, and then hold Control on the PC or Command on the Mac, and click and drag and hold Shift, otherwise we can distort it. So hold Shift, and we'll just bring it to the edge like that. So again, we hold Control, Shift on the PC or Command Shift on the Mac, and we resize that. But we'll go over why it's best really to resize photos in Photoshop ahead of time and then bring them into InDesign. But it's okay to make them smaller even in InDesign. We just don't want to make them larger than the original. And you'll notice the quality doesn't look too good. I press Control plus on the PC or Command plus on the Mac to zoom in. That's just a shortcut. It looks a little bit pixelated. It's not actually pixelated though. It's just doing this for the processor of the computer, so we're not moving around a document and it's kind of locking up or taking a long time to think and re-render on the screen. But this should be fine, right? So we can go ahead and just right-click, Display Performance, and then go to High Quality. All right, do that, and then we can actually see what it would look like when we print it out. And that's the actual photo. The other is just a preview. It's slightly pixelated looking. So let's do one more technique, and then we'll get into saving and what kind of format we want to save this in. So on the Tools panel, go ahead and select the pen tool. You can press P on the keyboard or just click the pen tool here on the Tools panel. And we're going to add 2 anchor points here and make sure this is selected. So with the selection tool, just click this photo frame here, and then with the pen tool, click about right here, and then click about right here where it has a little plus sign. And then now let's go ahead and select the direct selection tools, the white arrow on the tools panel, and just click off here somewhere so it deselects that. And we want to click those anchor points we just added. So if I click and drag this one up here a little bit, like so, and then we can click and drag this one a little bit like that, and there we go. Now we want to make this a curved angle though. All right. So what we can do is click and hold onto the pen tool and go down to the convert direction point tool. The shortcut is Shift plus C. And right over this anchor point, just click and drag, and we can make this a nice curved line there. And then right here as well, we want to click and drag. I'll make that a nice subtle curved line. So it adds a little bit of personality to it instead of just having an edge like a normal photo edge there. If you want to preview what this would look like, on the bottom of the tools panel, you can click and hold onto that and go to preview, or you can press W on the keyboard. That's a shortcut. And this is our poster so far. Just a quick technique to show you how InDesign works as far as placing images and doing a quick little adjustment to the edge of the photo frame there. Now throughout this course we want to save the InDesign file so we have that file so we can open it later and keep working on the project. So go ahead and go to File, Save As, and you want to save this as an INDD, InDesign default format, and you can give it a name there like poster, and then we'll add .INDD to it. And you can also save it as a template if you wanted to create an InDesign file that whenever you open it, it opens a copy of it as an untitled document. So it's not meant to be edited really itself, it just copies to create new documents. And if you want to save for CS4, CS5, CS6, you can save as IDML file. If you have a colleague who only has CS6, they don't have Creative Cloud, you could save it as IDML. Some features will not work though, some aspects of the file. For example, different types of page sizes in the same document will not work with the IDML, but most of it will. So if you want to save a document in that format, that would be for an earlier version. I'll go ahead and just save that as poster, and it'll save it as poster.indd. And I do suggest saving backups. For example, if you've worked all day on a project and you save it as poster 1 and then save it as poster 2 a little bit later and then poster 3, in case your most recent version of the poster, the file becomes corrupt, then you have a backup from the most recent save. You can also go to save a copy, so it will save a copy of this InDesign file in its current state, and then we can keep working on it. And you can also go to revert if you make any changes to an InDesign file and you want to revert it back to the saved version. You notice we have a little asterisk, meaning we've edited this file just by moving that photo there. You can go to File, Revert, and it will set it back to the original saved file. So thanks, and I will see you in the next lesson.